Hello and welcome to BBC News. Children's social care needs radical change to avoid tens of thousands more youngsters being taken away from their families. A major review of council-run children's services in England says earlier support is needed before families reach crisis point. The report says 100,000 children could be in care by 2032 if things don't change. That's 20,000 more than the current figure, which is already a record high. The landmark review makes more than 80 recommendations, with its lead, the former teacher Josh McAllister, saying the system needs a radical reset. To do that, he's calling for £2.6 billion to be invested over the next 5 years and a windfall tax on big private children's homes. Here's our social affairs editor, Alison Holt.
Okay, so let me know how it's been going since the panel.
Henrietta works with young people to help them pitch ideas and get their voices heard.
And also it'd be good to know how you found working on the project as well.
Her own life was shaped by the crisis in the children's care system that today's report wants to change. After 2 difficult years, she was removed from her mother by social services. She was 14, and in the next month she was moved between 5 different homes.
For me, being in care felt like a never-ending storm, just every day not knowing where the support's going to be from, where am I even going to lay my head, where is the support for the families right at the start when they're struggling, why does it need to be when they've been taken away? And you can't put kids into dysfunction when you've taken them out of dysfunction. It makes no sense.
Today's review says a radical reset is needed to shift the focus of children's social care away from crisis intervention. It wants more early help available in schools and communities, a new expert social worker role to strengthen child protection, the phasing out of what is described as wholly unsuitable young offenders institutions, a windfall tax on the profits of large children's homes companies, and to ensure change happens, an extra £2.6 billion funding for services over the next 5 years.
It's crucial that when families hit crisis and they've got difficulties, that there is low stigma, really intensive help on offer. And the system we've got at the moment is very well resourced to assess and check what's going on with families, but pretty strapped in terms of the help that it's able to offer.
That is where places like New Beginnings in Stockport come in. These parents have had either children taken into care or they've come close to it. Here they have found support, counselling and advice, which has turned their lives around.
My little boy has been home with me 1.5 years now, and I never ever thought that would be possible again. And anytime I need support, I reach out to New Beginnings. They're like family, they are family, the family that I never had.
They give me so much support and a lot of tools and strategies to work with my son who's got needs, special needs. And again, they give me the strength to push on.
The government says it is piloting additional family hubs providing early support. It also accepts more needs to be done to support family members, kinship carers, who take on a child who would otherwise go into care, and to find more foster carers.
We know that family relationships, kinship care, is equally important. The system needs to obsess about those relationships because that's how you get great outcomes for the children that need the most help in our society.
The government says it will consider other recommendations over the longer term. Alison Holt, BBC News.
Well, joining us now is Geraldine Nozowska. She's chair of the British Association of Social Workers. That's the professional association for social work in the UK. Very good to have you with us. Welcome to BBC News. I wonder, first of all, do you welcome this report and its recommendations?
We absolutely welcome the attention on the need for change in the system, and social workers really feel it every day if they're not able to provide families and children and young people with the absolute best support. We want to be able to say to people that we did everything possible to keep families together and help children thrive. So we welcome recommendations that will enable us to do that.
Why then are more children not being kept with their families at the moment?
I think we're in a really difficult time, actually. We've had 10 years of cuts, particularly to all those support services and universal services and to the safety net. That's left families with quite a threadbare way of living, and you see that stress in families. Social workers, when they go out, very often they're now meeting with families with children and young people who wouldn't previously have come into a crisis situation. And so I think, as well as addressing the changes that are needed in children's social care, we do have to think about wrapping that safety net back around families.
How broken is the child social care system in England at the moment, in your view?
It has a lot of heart and it has a lot of things going for it. It's had 10 years of disinvestment and it's just come through a pandemic, and we're going into a cost of living crisis. So this is absolutely the right time to be looking at how to improve things. I really welcome the government's commitment to be putting back some of those things that are really needed. Let's see that family support and community social work, and let's make sure that people who come into crisis get timely help as quickly as they can, so that we can get them out of that again.
But tell us a little bit more about what is needed, and is this just about more investment?
Investment is a big part of it, but there's always an element which is about using that money really wisely. I think what we've seen is that child protection is kind of like the canary in the mine. It's the litmus test for whether things are working. When we're seeing a lot of people coming into child protection services and children coming into care, it means that further back in the system there's things that aren't working and we need to address those. That is about putting back in the multi-agency help, making sure that there's really good timely support for families, and also addressing some of the things that cause stress on families, which is poverty, poor housing and inequality across our country.
Can you give me a sense of an example, perhaps, of how the system actually works when perhaps a child is reported to you and social workers get involved for the first time? What is the process?
We rely really heavily on people coming forward and saying when there's a concern with a family. We have good communities and neighbourhoods and families who do that, or we might hear from school. A social worker would make contact and go out and try and get to the bottom of what's going on. And what they want to be able to do is to put in place things to help that family really thrive. It may be that there's worries with money, it may be that there's worries with health, it may be that there's problems with housing, it may be that there's just a real breakdown in the relationships within the family. Sometimes as well, we know that there is actual harm and an intent to harm. So it's getting to the bottom of that and pulling together with other agencies, with education, with police, with health, and particularly with community and family and voluntary support. That's what we need to wrap around families, and that's what really makes a difference.
The report is calling for £2.6 billion in extra funding over the next 5 years. What will happen if that money is not forthcoming, in your view, which is, let's be honest, probably quite likely that it won't be?
Well, that money goes some way to putting back in what is needed. What we don't want to see is it being used in a piecemeal way, or just for structure change, or just for rebranding of things. We want to, ultimately, the test for social workers, can social workers, experienced social workers, spend more time with families and access the help that those families need? So that will be the test for us.
Geraldine Nazowska from the British Association of Social Workers, really good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
A Russian soldier